pour, we'll pour, Ashe.
Ashe.
We'll pour to the creative spirit, the great Ashe out of which we all emerge, Ashe.
Ashe.
We pour to that creative spirit by whatever name we know it, whatever name you hold in your heart, in your mind, whatever name your ancestors gave, whatever name you learned as a child, whatever name you believe it to be, whatever name you believe it to be in spirit or in science, Ashe.
Ashe.
We pour to the first human beings who came into existence on this planet, the first human beings who raised the first structures, who cooked the first meals, who taught the first children, who had the first children, the first Africans, the first people who stood upright, who walked, who figured out how to stay on this planet, who figured out how to pass that knowledge on to their children and their children's children, the mothers and fathers of civilization, Ashe.
Ashe.
We pour the next libation to their grandchildren and their children's children, those who raised the great early civilizations of Kemet and Kush and Monomotapa, the great medieval civilizations of Ghana and Mali and Songhai and Kanem Bornu. We pour to those who the great civilizations of the Igbo people and the Hausa people and the Kikongo people and the Mambara people, the great Mande civilizations, the great Kikongo, the great civilizations of Southern Africa, the Bantu people, the great civilizations of Southeast Africa, the Dinka, the Shilluk, the Noor. We pour to those millions who raised the foundations from which the world would learn what it meant to be human in the world, Ashe.
Ashe.
We pour to their children who were upon the arrival on the shores of people they had never seen before, found themselves captured and marched overland, found themselves perishing by the millions before they were held on the holding cells and the open air pens on the coast of West, Central, Southern, and East Africa. We pour to the ancestors who did not know as they were stripped of all clothing and sent denuded into boats, packed like animals, and strewn their bones across the floor of the Atlantic and the Indian Ocean. We pour to them who in the last moment on Africa grabbed the sand and grabbed the dirt and put it in their mouths and understood that the only thing they might have to preserve their place in that continent was their memory of that place and their ability to pass it on to their children. We pour to them, Ashe.
Ashe.
We pour to those Africans and their children who finding themselves cast adrift in Santiago, Cuba, who found themselves cast adrift in Porto, Spain, Trinidad, and Port-au-Prince, Haiti, who found themselves cast adrift in New Orleans and Charleston and Mobile, who found themselves cast adrift in Salvador, Bahia, who found themselves cast adrift in Barbados and the archipelago that formed the wayward and the windward coast. We found them in these places learning Portuguese and Spanish and French, whose often first words was, "Oh my God, oh Madre de Dios," who found themselves praying to survive and pass on to their children the memories. We pour to those ancestors who are represented in the thousands buried in all the square miles of where we stand, and who sit here buried before us in 400 caskets forged of wood from West Africa with Adinkra symbols. Each one of them, each woman, man, and child, symbolic of millions. The children of those who could not be killed, we pour, Ashe.
Ashe.
We pour to their children who somehow survived the hells of enslavement and fought for emancipation in the Caribbean, the French, British, Dutch Caribbean, who fought for emancipation in South America, who fought for emancipation in Central America, who fought the struggles we refer to as the Civil War in the United States, who came out of that, marched out of enslavement through Reconstruction, and found themselves making great migrations, eventually ending up in places like New York. Their children's children, who making a way for themselves became our great-great-grandparents, our grandparents, our great-grandparents, our parents. Those who, when the first bones were discovered in this space, held their hands and said, "Stop! No more!" We are here to speak for those who can no longer speak with their mouths. We pour for those ancestors, some of whom came to Howard University in 2004 and followed these caskets all the way back to New York. We pray to the great ancestors, the ones whose names we know and the ones whose names we don't. And at this moment, as we pour this libation, I would ask anyone who feels comfortable to say the name of someone in your bloodline who is no longer physically here, but who you know made it possible for you to be here. Go ahead, let's hear the names. Haywood Carr,
Porter Griffin,
Thomas E. Jr.,
Evelyn Glover.
We pour to the names that we hold collectively. Ganga Zumba in Brazil, Toussaint Louverture, Jean-Jacques Dessalines, and Henri Christophe in Haiti. We pour to the great avengers, Nanny of the Maroons of Jamaica. We pour to the great ancestors, Harriet Tubman, Sojourner Truth, Frederick Douglass. Say the names that you study. Who are the names of the ancestors that you have come to hold in your heart and your mind as you hope that you can do what they did for us, for your children and children's children? Let's say some of those famous names. Malcolm X, Elijah Muhammad, John Henry Clark, John G. Jackson, Jacob Carruthers. And finally, two final libations. We pour to those who make it possible for us to do what we do. We pour to these rangers who stand guardian over this sacred space. We pour to these Africans and these folks who have come from Howard University, the staff, the faculty, the administrators who brought us here today to bear witness. This is not a libation, but an affirmation, because their hearts still beat, their tongues still speak, their minds still think, and their minds still wish the best for us. We pour for all of those people who surrounded us on this journey today and made it possible for us to be here. We pour this affirmation of thanks, Ashe. And finally, we pour to your children's children's children who will one day stand on this space and speak your name. Ashe.
Through the years, I keep on toiling. Lord, I'm toiling through the storm and rain. Oh, I'm patiently waiting and watching for the Savior come again. And oh, I'm coming home, Lord. Every day I keep trusting in your word. And Lord, keep me every day of my life. Oh, sin. I need your love. When it's all over, I want you to write my name above. Lord, when the gates swing open, I may be better down than day. Oh, and here's what I say when I'm all by myself.
Welcome to Universally Speaking with Rahim Islam on 860 AM W. Rahim, I got a in there. Maybe that mean your name is going back to Julian. I apologize. As you can see, we are having a good time in the studio already. You're listening to Universally Speaking with Rahim Islam on 860 AM WNOV, The Voice. I am your co-host, Ptosha, with a P, Davis, and I got that right. That's right. And we are so excited. This is our long-awaited, finally, Faith Forward special edition with Rahim's co-host. So actually, I'm going to be doing less co-hosting today because he has three awesome gentlemen in the studio that are going to be co-hosting with him today, and I'm going to introduce them. And if you had an opportunity to tune in the last time we had this, it's been a couple months. They're back at it, and they're committed to do a little bit better, making sure that we get on once a month going forward. But I have to give a hats off to Minister William Muhammad because he was here rain or shine every time. So I'm going to introduce the co-host, and then I'm going to let Rahim dig right in. And we're going to start with Minister Greg Lewis, who is the president of Pastors United.
Hey.
How you doing, Minister Lewis?
How are you?
I'm good.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays. And we also have Minister William Muhammad from Mosque 3 here in Milwaukee.
Assalamu alaikum. Peace be unto you.
Peace. How are you? And then we have Bishop R.J. Burt from Greater New Birth Church and also Grace Fellowship here in Milwaukee.
Blessings and peace.
And then we have our host, Rahim Islam.
All of the above. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm really excited as always. See three of my favorite people together and to talk about something that's most important to us as our community. So I might as well go ahead and get started, right? And let's go straight for it. Tell us if you guys can we want to make sure that we give a quick update on where you are, what you're doing as representatives of different groups and religious groups in the city of Milwaukee. So just tell us just generally what you're doing and how you're doing those things, and then we're gonna tie those things together. But I don't want to take it for granted that everybody know who's sitting here. So Bishop Burt, why don't you start?
Bishop R.J. Burt, Greater New Birth Church. We're the church with the heart in the heart of the city. And we're reaching out, trying to empower. We create empowered Christians who will reproduce empowered Christians. We produce empowered Christians who will reproduce empowered Christians. And so we're in the process now of keeping in touch with our community. We just had a community breakfast where the individuals in the church served the community as they came in. That was on last Saturday. Had a really, really good time doing that and just expressing the thanks to people in our community for just who they are and what they're doing.
And you're located where?
We're located at 8237 West Silver Spring. That's where our sanctuary is, and administratively we're on 22nd and Center Street.
Okay. Minister Muhammad?
Assalamu alaikum, student minister William Muhammad.
First of all, I hear that student. I don't know what the student means. Tell us what that means.
All of the representatives of Minister Farrakhan are student ministers. We are all students. So that's the title that we wear.
Okay. So make sure you don't get too big-headed or something.
That's exactly what it's for. he wants to remind us that all of us are students.
Right. I got you. All right.
And so student minister William Muhammad of Muhammad Mosque No. 3 and local representative of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. Of course, October the 10th of this year, we called and had a very successful national event, 10-10-15 Justice or Else. And coming from that was and is going on the boycott for Christmas spending. And just based upon all of the economic indicators from Fortune magazine and Huffington Post, the retailers are in pain and they're slashing the prices. So we think and we believe that the boycott is very successful up to this point. And so from the other thing that we've been doing is we've been meeting every Wednesday night at the mosque for local organizing committee meetings. I'd like to thank all those who have participated. What we're working on simultaneous with the boycott is a conflict resolution center, which you'll hear more about as we initiate that campaign.
My brother?
I'm Minister Greg Lewis. I'm the assistant pastor at St. Gabriel's Church of God in Christ, pastor of my own ministry called Another Chance, and president of an organization called Pastors United. And we have an initiative to help in the areas of family structure, health and wellness, economic development, crime and incarceration, education and civic engagement, and of course, evangelism and prayer. But the initiative that we're really concentrating on right now is economic development. We have started to educate our community on credit, restoring their credit, because we have an initiative of getting houses, rehabbing, training our young folks, selling the houses to our people. We know that folks are living in houses that are really not, that are substandard and paying enormous amounts of rent when we can put them in a very nice house, cut all that in half, and folks can start to save money and tithe more into the church. So we have an initiative here to, get people back to possessing our community and ownership, and we really are focusing on that to build not just community but some wealth in our community, because we think that is the most important part of what needs to happen right now here in Milwaukee. We need some resources and wealth, and we have the ability to do it. And I'm a strict believer that we should stop complaining about what we don't have, and we should start concentrating on using what we do have to get the increase we need to develop our community.
So tell us a little bit more about Pastors United. So why organizing? Why are you organizing the pastors? Why are you trying to? What's the game plan of organizing the pastors?
Well, we started out.
How long have you been doing that?
Well, I started out in 2010, organizing during the.
Was there a specific reason?
Yeah, there was a reason, because there was a recall of our governor.
Okay.
And we wanted to get out to vote, and we thought, there was no better way to get out to vote than through the churches. The church is probably the last vestige of a real business we have in our communities, and some type of unity in our communities. It's an area where people are still holding on together. So we said, man, we need to get these churches. Not churches, let me correct myself. We need to get the pastors, the leaders, to come together, even if it's a minimal togetherness, just to talk about some things we could do together and actually focus on something. Not that we're going to be praying or having communion the same way and those kind of things, because that's not going to happen. But we can have the common graces. We can deal with our community issues. We can do that together, and we started doing that because we thought that pastors should be the leaders in bringing folks to the table and helping communities resolve some of the issues that pervade us. And we thought the only way that this is going to change is through the church and through our pastors. So we started out organizing pastors, and now we have 425 members in an organization called Pastors United, and we're quietly doing the work of the Lord. And to be honest with you, we want to make sure that we communicate with each other when it's election time, and when there's other things that need to be done in the city. So
when we need a bigger voice.
Yeah, we need a huge voice,
right.
And that's why we're working with you too. Also,
right. Well, we need the bigger the voice, and I think one of the things that's inherent in what you're describing is what are the things that bind us as versus that divide us. The things that bind us are much more bigger and much more important. You talked about the economics.
Yes, sir.
And Minister Muhammad, you talked about the whole issue around, which is really a delicate issue that I not a delicate, but one that's controversial. The whole issue around what's actually going on, boycotting Christmas, or I've heard terms like, because you can't really say that to next to these two.
No, we ain't talking about boycott
Christmas, right?
We talking about not spending money.
Well, but it gets out before you, and you got to now clean up, because as leaders we got to now clean these things up. And so I don't think it was ever intended, but these kind of things got out there. So how do you respond to that, Minister Muhammad? What actually is going on, and how do you communicate to your Christian brothers and sisters?
Well, as we've been out in the community, we've distributed literally thousands of flyers that say "Up with Jesus" and "Down with Santa." And Minister Farrakhan's message to our Christian brothers and sisters, our pastors, and our message has been very clear that we love Jesus, and we're asking our people to, on this day that commemorates the birth of our Savior, that we bring him into the home, and that we kick Santa Claus out, and that we reject the commercialism of what is a holy time, a time of where we should be in prayer and thanksgiving for receiving a Savior. And so, that's the message. So it's really economic withdrawal. And then we invoke history. We invoke Dr. King's name. He desired to boycott Christmas spending. We invoke history right here in Milwaukee in 1967, where they participated in economic withdrawal and had a very successful campaign against the downtown businesses. I wrote an article that I got from Muhammad Speaks newspaper that was in the Courier last week, where Val Phillips was part of that, and Father Grappi, and where they explained that because of the injustices that we're suffering, when you take money away from those that we have been supporting, white business community, and they feel that pain, then they would be more, they are in a position to pressure the policymakers and the police departments and the mayors to give justice and change policies.
Bishop Burt, won't you weigh in here? You lead a very large congregation, very progressive congregation as well. What is that in your leadership? What goes on in the discussions as where are you taking the church as it relates to some of the issues that Minister Muhammad talked about? How are we more focused on Santa than we are on Jesus and the spirit of Jesus? And I did hear you say earlier about the giving, that you just, one of the giving things, which I find is one of the most, for me, one of the most rewarding times of the year is the time, not because of Santa coming down no chimney, but the spirit of giving and looking out for fellow man. So how does that incorporate in some of the in your thinking as a leader in this community, and also as a challenge that Minister Farrakhan has called out, and to kind of this boycott? Weigh in on that for me.
I did a sermon a couple weeks ago called "The Reason for the Season," where I talked about the whole holiday and kind of like its inception and how we got to where we are now. One of the things around Christmas, of course, is giving. And so I wasn't led, or I didn't feel led to necessarily boycott. I understand the philosophy, I understand the concept, I understand the impact, but I wasn't led to do that at this particular time. I can't say what will happen in the future. So what we've tried to do is we have tried to instill in people during this time of year where God so loved the world that he gave, that this is a time for us to yield or to give. Now, it may be very true that we're doing it at a time which is termed Christmas, but I'm of the opinion anytime you can get people to do good, it's good to get them to do good.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, and so so we've been pushing that, just that sense of that it's not really about the size of the gifts or the gifts that you get, and that nobody's coming down your chimney, but it's the idea of let's take this time to focus on the meaning of why we do what we do, Christ, and God's love for us in terms of him giving his son for us, and then how do we give back, and how do we give to our communities. So I don't necessarily see us being diametrically opposed. It's just something that we're not doing. Now, I can't say in the future, should we all continue to dialogue, work together, that we will not be able to collectively do some things and have a push toward a common goal around some of those kinds of areas.
Well, I think the issue of economics got to be front and center. I think when you look at the demographics, and one of the things that I've been pushing, when you look at the demographics in our community, we dominate all of the negative ones, and we're invisible in all the positive ones. And the one that's most prevalent, that has probably the biggest impact, is the wealth disparities, the income disparities,
True.
The high levels of unemployment, underemployment, the academic gaps that support that, the mass incarceration of our people that supports the economic gaps. But the economic gaps is something that we have to be able to build a bigger voice to do. And I think the one of the muscles that is weak in our community is the muscle of thinking and doing for self economically. And so I think the minister was trying to get that muscle to be used.
Totally, yeah.
Right,
yeah.
to be used. But obviously we're just getting started.
Right.
And
let me say, I think that that economics is, of course, first and foremost because many of the things that we do, we could not get done, even as it relates to assisting individuals.
Of course.
We couldn't get done. You know, I think inside of that whole sense of business ownership, you know, and us supporting each other in business plays a major role in that. We have a pretty strong push in our church for business ownership, you know, owning and supporting and allowing the finances to recycle, you know, through our community and even through our church. And so I do think that the economics are a major role. And inside of there, of course, it goes the teaching of what do you do with economics when you get it, because it's not, even though there is a disparity,
Sure.
it still is not as if our people are not getting money.
Sure,
It's
absolutely.
what they're doing with it, yeah.
Well, and so is education.
Yes.
And so, Minister Lewis, I just read, and I think this is really fit. This is in the Courier today, and it says, what day is that? September 19th. Oh, excuse me, this December. Sorry, what's the day? Oh, okay, that's right. We're moving. This year gonna be out in 2 seconds. It's like unbelievable. But Jesse Jackson has an article and it says, "Leaders provide vision and not division." What are your thoughts on that?
Well, that's terribly important because, you know,
And
most
who are
peop-
leaders?
Well, I think there's several of them, and you know,
I'm looking at 3 leaders here right now. So
Yes.
I'm gonna lay it on you guys right now as leaders. So go ahead.
so you know, I think it's important that, you know, vision is certainly clear when you are in leadership, so that you don't respond to negativity or indifference when you are creating, you know, a method of movement. And you know, I always say that, you know, if you have a vision and you're very clear with it, I don't like to do a lot of voting. I like to get the vision, explain the vision, and let's do it.
I've heard that a couple times.
Well, but, you know, I mean, it's
Minister
not-
Lewis says,
well,
just do it, man.
let's
Come
just
on.
do it.
Don't worry about what they say. Just do it.
No, I think because, you know,
We don't need
pe-
consensus.
well, yeah, well, in some things you do.
No,
I mean,
I'm messing with you.
But you know, at times, you know, you need to just
Do it.
Yeah, because see, I say this too, and I get a lot of pushback on this. You know, we have to drag folks to success because there's so much despair, and people are very apathetic, and they just think that there's no hope. So we have to go ahead and be an example of hope and just drag folks to success.
So
as a leader,
that vision of hope, what does that look like? I mean, what does that look like amongst the leaders?
Well, for
so
me-
if you want people to follow that, what is the leaders doing to demonstrate the vision that you just described and not division?
yeah, well, you have to create an atmosphere that people can certainly find a reality in. You know, for instance, you know, you have to find things in their self-interest, like, okay, credit restoration. That's something that people are interested in. You know, owning homes. That's something people are interested
Economics.
in. Economics.
Right.
And you have to
It
find.
transcends.
Man,
everybody's
nobody is
right.
mad about that, really. So we have to do that, and then, you know, we have to create these businesses like Bishop was talking about. And so what we're doing is we're creating the economic development through credit restoration, and we're telling everybody, once you start doing this, man, call the state and start you up a business. Whatever you're good at, let's start a business in it, and then we'll work from there. So I know we're going to a break.
I'm gonna challenge you when you come back, but because I'm gonna challenge every one of you here, because I got a vision.
Oh, well,
Right.
I like that.
I got a vision, and
Maybe you're the leader. In the
well, maybe what I'll do though is see if we can reconcile the vision. All right, and we can come away with one vision. All right.
Okay, we're going to take a break. This is really good stuff. If you want to let someone know to tune in, this is a special edition of Universally Speaking with Rahim Islam. This is called Faith Forward. We will be taking calls when we come back from the break. 414-444-5250. 414-444-5250. We'll see you after the break. back to Universally Speaking with Rahim Islam on 860 AM WNOV, The Voice. I am so excited to be here in the studio. This is our special edition called Faith Forward. We are joined by Minister Greg Lewis, Student Minister William Muhammad, but you know I'm going to still call you Minister Muhammad, right? And Bishop R.J. Burt, along with our very own host, Rahim Islam, here in the studio. So we went to break. Rahim had put some questions out on the floor for you gentlemen to answer and to respond to, and I believe it's on you, Minister Muhammad.
Well, actually, I just want to
okay.
restate
No,
it.
it's not.
No, it is. But I want to restate the one. We can say we're going to talk about kind of reconciling the vision, and restate it. The vision. I mean, one of the things that obviously gets in the way is the vision. But one of the things that I think everybody can generally talk about in the black community is why are we not making the progress we need to make? And many will associate that to division. So the question for all of you leaders are how are your efforts bringing us together versus dividing us even more as a community? And are we working together? What is the game plan? And to get us closer together, if you feel that's a legitimate issue. And Minister Muhammad, you could start, and then we'll ask the Bishop Burt, and then you, Minister Lewis.
Well, first of all, I am a follower of a man that I consider the true leader, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. And so that places me in a position where it looks like I'm a leader, but really I'm a follower of the leader. And what I've learned from Minister Farrakhan is that the vision comes from God. It comes from the prophecies of the Bible and Holy Quran. And that may sound controversial because it's religious, but that is the driving force of everything that the minister is doing. So,
and that's how we get in trouble.
Yes, but that's also how we bring our people together, because if you look at the virtues and the characteristics that Minister Farrakhan have demonstrated for 60 years, he is the one human being that can make a call and the entire human family can come, which means that he has the ability to communicate in such a way where it touches people where they are. It is not divisive religious dogma, they're principles.
So let me just ask this question. Is the vision that everybody be Muslim?
No.
That everybody follow Islam?
That's not the message.
Follow the teachings of Minister Farrakhan?
That's
and the Nation of Islam?
Right.
That's not the message?
Right.
Okay. All right.
Right. So the message, when Minister Farrakhan in 1995 called a Million Man March, and nearly 2 million men came, and most of those men were Christians. He didn't send everybody to Muhammad Mosque number whatever.
Right.
He said, go to a place of worship that you feel comfortable with, and fulfill your mission in the community through that institution. Go to the NAACP, go to the Urban League, start your own organization. But the pledge that he asked the men to take were based upon the concept of atonement and rebuilding the community. It had nothing to do with accepting a particular religion.
So let me just make sure, and then I'm going to go to you, Bishop Burt. I want to make sure. So the vision is not for us to follow one way. Obviously, he was speaking to all of humanity, but he's being driven and led as an inspirational and spiritual leader by religion or scripture and a combination of spiritual.
Prophecy, because we're living in prophecy.
Okay.
We're fulfilling prophecy. And so, but what keeps him effective is character, and vision. So he asked, like, I'll just use the boycott as an example. Okay, so he asked us to practice an economic withdrawal, drawing from history, and at least $1.5 billion are expected in profit loss from the boycott, due to weather, and due to the protests that have been taking place. So so when people see that the power of their own unity, what it can do, how it can distribute pain. We look at the situation that took place at the University of Missouri. There was a young brother who was fasting, really, and they were going to let him die. But when the football players decided that they weren't going to play, and they saw that money. See, so we're being educated as a community as to the power of our economic unity. But it comes from a call of a man and people who demand justice and who fighting for justice. And so that is the driving force of even our economics.
Bishop Burt, why don't you weigh in on it? We're talking about the vision. We talk about the vision for the black man, specifically in Milwaukee. All right. Well, we also talk about the vision for the black man in America, but it's the same. It's the same vision. We want freedom, justice, and equality. We want to be able to chart our own, determine our own destiny in America. Yet, we're not making the progress we need to make. As a leader, how much are you contributing to the vision, and are you, or if you think you are, I'm not sure if you are or not, but maybe so much you specifically, but religion is contributing to division.
Are you saying division?
Division.
Oh, well,
Division. You thought
right,
you said
right.
division.
Well, let me begin by saying my take on life and perspective may be just a bit different.
And that's fine.
I basically live my life based upon the purpose I understand God has for my life. And so if I were to get a vision tonight that dealt with me being a community leader, I would hold on to that, and I would try to foster that.
So is there a distinction then?
Yes.
There's a distinction between being the person you are as the...
Yes. The Honorable Louis Farrakhan is an icon. He's a brilliant man led by God to do some amazing things as it relates to leadership of the whole.
Right.
I may not have leadership of the whole. I may be a defensive coach. When
It's a big
people,
part, though.
It is a big part. When people gather on 82nd and Silver Spring, and I'm talking to those thousands of people every week, I am leading them. They, in fact, go out into their communities based upon the principles that are taught, based upon the principles of living, the principles of family, the principles of economics, and they're ingrained in the society and impact the society.
Okay.
So David said it like this: I exercise not myself in things that are too high for me. That's how I try to live. I have always had an affection for the Honorable Louis Farrakhan, and I think his approach in many ways are very helpful. I do believe that we, on our side of religion, if you will, if I can say it like that, have some great leaders of the whole. I'm simply saying I am not called to lead Milwaukee. I'm called to lead those who've been given to me, and so the resources and the way I approach things helps me to empower them. Okay.
Mr. Lewis, why don't you take a stab at that? Because I got some comments for all three of you.
And can I say that's
Sure.
why I joined Minister Lewis, because he has that broader vision.
Sure,
So
got
I'm
you.
a part of Pastors United, where I don't lead, I follow.
Got you.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think that's important because I'm just thinking, you said the vision or division. I'm still trying to figure that one out. But anyway, the men here, we all work together. And, what we have to get by is not being afraid to, talk about our blackness for one thing, because we're all in the same group and we got to work together to lift up a community out of spiraling down direction that we're going in. So, and then the other things, we can't be afraid to garnish our power because we've been bluffed out of it. And, I think that's part of where we have all this contention. And we can't be afraid to have money. We can't be afraid to have wealth. We think we don't deserve that, and that's just a fallacy. And instant gratification is one thing, but long-term planning and analysis and preparation is another thing, and we just don't have the patience, so I think that's where a lot of it comes in when we don't work together. And some people are on different levels. Some people can get it right now. It's going to take time for others, and but what we need to do is people have to make certain sacrifices, and that means that you got to love some people. I mean, actually, I think the biggest I think my most potent resource and energy is the love I have for people, and it's really true. I care about people, and I have a urge to live or die doing what I'm doing right here. I don't want to die with this city the way it is. I have children, I have grandchildren, and I have a focus on the Lord. And I'm filled with the Holy Spirit, and and that is really important to me. So my strength actually comes from God, and in saying that, He gives me vision because I have a closeness with Him, and I'm ready to proceed with the vision no matter what is before me, because I can see long-term hope. He really gives me that vision. I can see if we keep working together, even though we have to drag folks with us. If we keep working together, Brother Rahim, it's going to happen.
Well,
yes, sir.
You said a couple things. One is that, Bishop, I think that your position in your church, I hear what you just said, and I appreciate what you said. But your influence, your influence is much greater. Why? Because the people that are not parachuting into the church, they're coming to the church while they might get some instruction. They're coming into church if they are not, their family, their friends, their associates are part of this struggle that we all are struggling with. Mm-hmm. And I think it is incumbent upon you as the leader, and I know you do that, is to provide some direction, okay? And and I think you would agree that by yourself, all three of you by yourself will not change the conditions facing our community.
No way.
By ourselves.
No way.
So Pastor Lewis, you might even have a little bit more because you're organizing some 300 or 400 other pastors to work together. But even by yourself, you can't believe that you will get it done by yourself.
See, and even when saying that, working with, these powerful men, I always have to be very humble, because every man I work with is a leader, and I always have to make sure that, I make sure that they understand that I understand the quality of who they are. So, and that's what everybody needs to do, Brother Rahim. That's the only way we're going to make it is to bow down.
And you're talking about a different level of leadership.
Yes, sir.
And a different level of commitment and the politics involved in the leadership
yes,
at
sir.
your level.
Yes.
And Minister Muhammad, you talked about the evidence of the pain that's being distributed by the boycott. Well, until we can actually translate that, we can park that 1.5 billion in a bank account that we can now draw down on, which is the first step. I agree with you, but it's going to require additional level of infrastructure to now monetize that 1.5 billion and use that 1.5 billion in the delivery of things that we need in our community, whether it's building resources, whether it's building commerce, whether it's offering a hand, whether it's feeding people, whether it's whatever it is, whether it's getting people off the street that are homeless. We have a number of black men coming home from prison that have nowhere to go because of drugs and addiction to drugs. They've burned all their bridges, and it's only a matter of time before they go back to prison. So we need resources. And so I think you would all agree that by ourselves we cannot do this. And so that's where I go to the term of division. So the question got to be, if we're leaders, how much of our leadership is driving us to the core to work with each other? How much of time are we using to advocate for a critical mass of us to lock arms together and work together in spite of the issues that we've been, I guess, presented as things that divide us, but for the future of the black community in Milwaukee? And that's the question I have for all of you.
Well, I would say all of my time is spent doing that. It's just in the forum in which it's done. It may not be seen as that.
Well, bingo. That's I know that for a fact.
And you've said in services, so you know I'm not a segregationalist as it relates to denomination or religion. You know, it's a matter of what you want to get done and what do you think is the best approach to do that, and who's doing it, who has the vision. Vision meaning more than just knowing what needs to be done, but having the inner foresight to know how to get that done. So when Nehemiah goes back to build the gates and he goes out at night, he takes a group of people with him and he says, okay, I just want to scout out the land and come up with the idea. Then he gets together with the other leaders and he says, okay, this is what we're going to do. We're going to build the gates. Then he gets together with a larger group and he says, you are going to build the sheep gate. And this is what needs to happen with that. And you're going to build this gate, the water gate. And this is what needs to happen with that. So when I think of vision, I think of more than just knowing what needs to be done, but having the inspiration, back to what Dr. Lewis was saying, having that inspiration to say, yeah, that's it. And I'm simply saying, I know what that's like at New Birth. For the city of Milwaukee, I don't, but I believe God will raise up a leader. He may be very well in this room. And I'm willing to as much lead as follow. If it means leading the group I pastor, fine. I'm willing to do that. So I'm willing to lead as much as follow. I just want to get it done. And we have to keep talking like we're talking now, right, I think, to really make it happen.
Well, it's absolutely critical, because guess what? Ain't nobody else gonna do it for us. We don't have, unless we go and petition Mars and get some Martians to come. And I mean, we have, and I think we have a very, very powerful group of people. We're very, very strong. We're stronger than most of us understand. So the question for us is that we have to take the position that if we're not moving as fast as we need to move, we have to take responsibility for that. As leaders, we have to take responsibility. All of us sitting here have to take responsibility for why. And so part of the equation has to be creating this platform where we can at least share information. We can talk to each other. And so I think organizing the pastors is critical. The religious community in the black community has been the saving grace for the community. But for the religious community, we would probably be in so much worse shape. But when you look at what has happened to us, we're looking at the in the papers also, it's talking about the breaking the silence, learning about the transatlantic slave trade. We're looking at 350 years of history where we were done everything possible to us,
right?
And it didn't stop with them releasing us and saying, okay, now you guys are free, you can do what you want. It just kept messing with us and kept messing with us, but we still prevailed. So we are a very, very powerful people. We have, and I've come to learn, and this is what I think that we can all, if we could take a little bit of this going forward, I think we can move faster. We're not as divided as we are disconnected. Because I don't think there was not a vision. I said we're going to reconcile vision.
Right.
The vision is, how do we save our community? How do we save the black community? How do we do better in America? How do we do better in Milwaukee? Well, we got some very powerful people. I challenge for us, Minister Lewis, and you were one of those ones who just want to, I was gonna say smash somebody and just think about it later. Say stuff like that. We'll deal with it later. Shoot first, and then ask questions later. No, but we have to spend a little bit of time bringing together the leaders in our community more along to a point where we can have, so whoever you have influence on, we have to bring them to the table. We need each other. There's a concept in the Kwanzaa and Umoja, which is unity.
Right.
I am we, and I am as we are. So that's we are together, and so we got to figure out a way, how do we translate that into structural, so that we can begin to move some of the structural issues that we face. They're not, these are not no imagined issues. They're structural. You see the difference in our communities. You see the disparities in our incomes. You see the high levels of unemployment. They're structural. They're not imagined.
So do you have some ideas on how we might do that?
Yes, a part of it is this here. This working with you brothers, and I love all three of you, and admiring the work that you do, and moving that work to a core, a critical mass, so that we can have a critical mass of people who are thinking the same way. Again, if I believed, which I did a year ago, that we were divided. I listened to what everybody said. We don't trust each other. We're divided. I don't. That's not what I've seen. And when I go spend a lot of my time meeting with people, I don't feel that. I mean, I see a knucklehead here and there, but for the most part, I see people who, you just finished saying, Minister Lewis, that you're ready to give your life for our people. This is what I see. Most black men and black women of any kind of measure, that's how they talk. The question for us is, what can get us to a point where we can create a plan of action? We can create a bigger voice, because we're going to need it. Your church aligned with another church, your mosque, and the other. Now that voice is starting to get a little bit bigger, and so it can't be dismissed. Not only for those who are external, but those for internally. We need to see it ourselves. So part of the solution is this forum. Mm-hmm. We've been talking about the Milwaukee community of leaders. We're talking about strengthening the local organizing committee. I sit on that group as well, participating on any organized effort, and then bringing the organizations together to sit around to talk about an agenda. We have a political season coming up, very important. The county executive's office, the mayor's office can help move this agenda. The question is, what is our agenda, and how are we taking it? What do we want each candidate to display when it comes down to our agenda? So we got work to do, and we're trying to stop coughing over here, but
Well, I'm excited. I get sick. I got
but I wanted to really, I do believe that question is really for our audience, to alert them. There are a lot of things happening, and God willing, we'll be able to share with you a number of different things going forward. I keep getting a sign here to wrap up. Why don't you, Ptosha, why don't you talk about what's next?
So there's a lot coming up next. Unfortunately, we are out of time today, but we will make sure that as soon as we can in January, we get all of you back in studio again.
My thing is this. Let me just say this here before I leave, Tosh. You know I do this all the time.
I know you do. I'm not even upset.
Don't get excited, guys. We do this all the time. I get a thought, and I said, wait a minute, I lost my thought. We got to do for self. And what does that mean? So the vision I would love to take away from here is that, first and foremost, the 250,000 black people in Milwaukee has, a number of different people that are telling them go this way, go that way, go this way, go that way. We got to reconcile that direction so that they know where to go. And it might not be divisive in the sense that it is intended to be divisive, but by the very fact that we're not leading the people to a center is, in its essence, a divisive move. And we've all followed that path just because we want to be successful. And we're sincere about what we're attempting to do. So hopefully, God willing, over the next couple months or the next couple days, couple weeks, especially when we get into 2016, we'll clarify a little bit more around the direction of how do we get more of us to the center, and the center being the center of what is the most important thing and the most critical thing for the black community in Milwaukee.
So, unfortunately, we are literally out of time, and I want to thank you, gentlemen, for all coming on and for being so patient. We're going to make sure that Rahim does not miss his plane as he leaves and heads out. I want to wish everyone a happy, prosperous, and peaceful holiday. And also, the kickoff for Kwanzaa is on Saturday. So make sure that you go out and join the Wisconsin Black Historical Society for that event. Once again, thank you, Minister Greg Lewis. Thank you, Student Minister William Muhammad. And thank you, Bishop R.J. Burt. I think we have a treat as we go out. We don't? Okay. Apologize. We do not have a treat. We will not be here on Friday. We will be back on Monday. Same time, same station. You've been listening to Universally Speaking with Rahim Islam on 860 AM WNOV, The Voice.